The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 137.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Mike Creavey, aka Old Ben, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Please be sure to share this podcast on Twitter or Facebook. Let us know how we're doing over there. Leave us a review. And tonight, we're excited to be digging into episode 10 of Andor. Only 2 more to go. This one's called One Way Out. So joining me tonight to unpack all this are Robert King. Welcome to The Secrets of Star Wars.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Josh Beeghley. Glad to have you back. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. So yeah, we have this, well, I guess next week is the penultimate episode. I don't know if there's something before penultimate, but we only have a few left to go here. But
penultimate.
That's right. It's well, it's funny. That's one of those words I was using incorrectly for like a couple of years, and then someone corrected me. I was like, "Oh man, that's a good one to know." Now I know.
Yeah.
So our real quick overview here is I'm just going to give a quick sort of synopsis for the episode. We're, as usual, assuming with these kinds of shows that if you're listening to this, you've probably seen this episode, and spoiler alerts ahead of time. So if you haven't seen it, just go watch the episode. That would just be silly. But anyway, this is again called One Way Out. It's episode 10, and this is really this culminating episode regarding the prison situation on Narkina 5. So basically, you don't have a whole lot of the other subplots in here. You have a couple of things we're going to get into dealing with the situation back on Ferrix, but that's just a quick little checkup. We have the situation ongoing with Supervisor Miro and kind of what's going on with the ISB. We get a little check-in on, and then some stuff with Luthen that we're going to talk about later, which is pretty cool. A little more of a, still not a lot of detail, but a little more window into kind of his world. So basically the main plot of this episode deals with picking up right after Olaf's death from the last episode. You see them taking him out in a body bag. Very somber, and then you get very quickly this exchange between Cassian and Kino, of course, played by Andy Serkis. And Kino's kind of all worked up. We don't know why. We find out later in a pretty amazing and dramatic way. But Cassian is really starting to show his I don't know if leadership's. I would use leadership, but at least he's focused. He is very clear about where they're at, that this is basically a situation where they're not getting out. They're basically just, when you get released from prison, you're just sent to another prison, that this is all just a big game, and they're going to die. And he basically says, I'd rather die fighting back basically than die giving them what they want, and Kino's just, he seems on the fence. He seems really upset, and he doesn't really respond. And Cassian keeps putting pressure on him. They get back in their cells, and everyone's asking what's going on. And Cassian takes it upon himself to let everybody know the situation. Kino finally snaps and sort of yells out, "No one's getting out," steps up. They all listen to him. And that's when we first get this sort of sense that he's on board. He sees the writing on the wall. They got to do something. So he says, let's start figuring this out. We cut over to some of those other scenes I mentioned, which we're going to unpack here shortly. Then back to the main prison situation where they clearly have a plan the next day. It's a big dramatic buildup to the events that are going to play out. And basically the prison break happens. So without further ado, I mean, that pretty much covers it. We see at the very end of the episode, Melchi and Cassian kind of running off into the distance. and wherever they're headed, which we'll clearly be picking up on next time. So with that in mind, I thought, guys, we'd jump back here, as I said before we started, and just see any thoughts you might have on those briefer segments. We have the situation with Cinta back on Ferrix, kind of keeping an eye on what's going on with Marva, because of course, the Aldani crew, still wants to find out what happened to Cassian. He's a loose end they have to tie up. They obviously don't learn a whole lot more, but we learn that Marva is not taking her medicine or medication. So there's a doctor on his way to the house. We overhear some of that, just see Cinta kind of paying attention. But then Miro has someone watching the house too, or Cinta, or how'd you guys take that? Who was he looking at?
I think it's also looking at Cassian's mother, because they did start showing interest in the ISB, and I don't think that they know of. Names are out of my mind right now.
Right.
But yeah, they're not watching her because they don't know about her yet.
Cinta, right.
Cinta,
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
there's the name.
Yeah, but both Cinta and the Imperial agent, who we know is Imperial because he's wearing that Imperial cap.
Right.
And
Corv, C-O-R, Corv is his name, apparently.
Hey, it's good to have a name in the script.
He has an entry on Wikipedia. That means you've made it, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're all keeping an eye on Marva, and one of the videos I watched since the episode was speculating that Marva is probably going to be central to the next couple episodes. Like, Marva is going to be the lever they use to get at Cassian, and I think that's I don't know, that's as good a speculation as any.
I think so. Yeah, and we, by the way, I want to add, we have Father Geoff Horton has just joined us. Father, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well. It's a beautiful, clear night out there. I was looking at things with my telescope.
Engaging in the truest sense of wonder and awe. So no, welcome. Yeah, we just jumped in and just went through the synopsis. So that's where we decided to do the sort of shorter, like 20 or 30 second clips and stuff first, and then get to the prison stuff. So, but did you have any thoughts on the Ferrix stakeout?
Yeah. Clearly, I think Cinta's trying to pick up Cassian's trail and some aspect of the Imperials. I mean, the Imperials embody don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing, but some, not in a good sense, sadly, but some of that is catching on and trying to catch up with them.
Sure. And so, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I guess the big question I have from that, though, is what does Marva think she's going to accomplish by not taking her medication?
She said it's because it makes her not want to eat. And she's like, if I got to eat, I'm going to eat. I'm not going to take this medicine. I think it's just her being a difficult older woman. She's just resilient about it.
I guess I was wondering, is she like trying to keep up her strength to rebel in some particular way or something? I don't know.
I forget the droid's name, but I think he'd be nagging her throughout this to take her medicine.
Yeah. Was it B?
You would think.
Yeah, B2. Yeah. Oh,
my
goodness. Well, I suspect, clearly by the time we get to him in Andor, or I'm sorry, in Rogue One, Cassian, he doesn't have anyone or anything, and right now it's like he still has Marva. So I think most of us are just assuming at some point she has to leave the story somehow. I'm still wondering if the sister thing is going to develop too. I suspect maybe that might be a season 2 thing, if at all.
I frankly didn't believe Marva when she said there is no sister. I don't believe it.
Right. I think she's trying to spare him.
She does tell him, was it the last episode? Or it was the episode before he ran off and got caught in prison. But she says, you need to stop looking for your sister, which is the only other reference we've had to a sister since the first episode.
Right.
So I feel like the sister is a promise that's been dangled out there in front of us.
Yeah.
And it's the closest I have to like a really deeply personal motivation for Andor.
Right.
But it feels almost like they're dangling that out there and saying, we're not going to do anything with this yet. Wait for it.
But now there's 2 episodes left.
Right.
Well, there's a second season, so we got a whole bunch of time yet to go.
Yeah, there is a second season. I still think it's, I don't know, not my favorite writing trick to say, oh, and here's an interesting shiny thing that we're going to hold out and not tell you about.
It's like all of this season 1, and then right before the credits in the end of episode 12 to be like, Cassian, like, it's your sister. Like, okay, come on. But I think it might be something like that, But we do. I'll tell you what. Let me jump over here quick because we do have this sort of probably it's also a short scene, but this other pretty ominous scene right between the promised meeting from the last episode that Tay has set up between Mon and this banker Dafo, who we don't get a lot of detail, but I forget what she called him, that he's a thug or something to that effect. So he's
Well, then they pretty much Tay told her in the last episode he's a Nova Rish who made his money on the dark side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
I think of him as like a mobster, organized crime or something.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, it was so funny because I thought he was acted so well because it's that classic, he just really tickles the ear. There's a real devilish kind of thing about him, right? This almost like he should have had a mustache and he's like literally twirling, but he's just sitting there and he's just like, and these imperial, he's like, these banking codes, which they passed without Senate approval, I might add, just really I'm on your side, and some people with a perfect reputation, like he's like insulting and complimenting her at the same time. It's just like, oh my. So we don't know exactly what he does, but it definitely, you get the impression there's probably some Hutt money in there. And, it's
vulgar, whatever it is.
Right. This bundling thing. But then, of course, the other sort of shoe drops with this, she's insisting on I don't want favors. I want to pay you for this. Like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And he, again, dangles out this sort of surprised. I wasn't expecting this. So how did you guys interpret this as far as what exactly he's after? Most of what I've seen online is saying this is this Chandrillan, betrothal type thing.
Yeah. He says, I'm not asking for betrothal. And she replies, then what are we talking about? He says, an introduction. Right. Which is, I want a betrothal down the line.
Right.
For me, although it was a brief scene, one of the key things this episode is, as it has been throughout the show, what are people's motives and how far are they willing to go to recognize the rebellion? And so he's kind of grinding Mon Mothma's face in it. What price are you willing to pay? Especially when you put that in with Luthen's monologue at the end. How much is she willing to pay for the rebellion to succeed? What is she willing to sacrifice?
And she definitely seems against her own people's decisions. And it's like, she needs to, I'll agree with that, where like she needs to accept and do what she needs for the rebellion, especially if this is such a vital part, because you can't have a rebellion if you don't have funds.
Right. Well, and it's how old, like we got a little hint a few episodes ago, which seemed like an offhanded or an unrelated thing, but clearly we got that little discussion at the party about how they were married when they were 14 or 15, I think, to set this up, and how she's not exactly a happily married woman. And, as much as these issues she has with her daughter, you get the impression that, at least I get the impression that, she's not on board, obviously, with this in principle, let alone with this guy's kid.
At the same time, she is thinking about it.
Right.
And
he knows that
she knows it. Know which way she's going to come down. I am. This is one of the things that has me in the most suspense out of this episode. Actually,
One thing they set it up so well with too was he comes in and he starts flattering her about standing up for the old Templarian ways.
Yeah,
and he doesn't realize he's doing his little mobster thing and setting her up for the fall.
Oh, yeah. And the look on his face, too, when he leaves, he's like, it's a lot to think about. And I'm not thinking about it. And that's the first untrue thing you've said. It's like, oh, man, he's, for a guy that's not in it very long. I mean, he's right up there with some, sharing some great Star Wars villain traits.
Especially with her trying to hide so much and him sort of getting any sort of sense as to what she's thinking.
Right.
It scared her, and you could sort of see that. It was just like she started panicking and freaking out. I was like, get him out of here as quick as possible.
Well, that's a question I had for you guys. Do you think he has any inkling about what she's up to big picture? Or I'm sure he's curious because he knows that if she's dabbling around with this, like, I need to hide $400,000, he's like, well, there's something that would be good for me to know, for the future.
Yeah. I don't get the sense he's onto the rebellion though.
Right.
It sounds like he's been chummy with her husband, who does not have a clue about the rebellion, as far as we know, anyway.
Right.
Well, I think if anonymity is his thing, then maybe not. But it would be something. He's this guy who would say, "Well, how can I make money off whatever she's turning this $400,000 into?"
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So he may not know now, but that doesn't mean he's not trying to find out.
Yeah, he'll see it to his interest.
Well, that's that Moff Gideon speech, which is it's like one of the most honest speeches I've ever seen in a movie, when he says at the end of season 1 of Mandalorian, and he's like, if you're asking if you can trust me, you cannot. I will act in my self-interest, and you will as well. And at this time, it's most advantageous to me for you to cooperate. He's just like,
yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Quick, let's get out of here. But
yes,
you get that same impression with this
direct,
guy,
like
right?
Mon Mothma,
right? Which reminds, honestly, a little bit of what's his name, Skeen, the guy, the Aldhani heist guy, who not nearly to this level and this precision, but the same kind of like, I'm a rebel too, just against everybody else, or just it's I'm number one, which is and we'll keep coming back to that, because it's like, where is that ever okay? Because there's some people on the good guys side in this show who seem to have the same attitude too. So, oh my goodness.
So I think as I'm thinking about it, I don't think Davo would have a clue about the rebellion, because if he did, I don't think he'd be interested in setting up his son with Mon Mothma's daughter.
Right.
If he's setting up for an arranged marriage, he's expecting Mon Mothma to remain in a position of influence and authority,
right.
Somebody that he can use. So he wants to kind of maintain the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And if he knew that Mon Mothma was dedicated to upsetting the status quo in some significant way, I think he would be a lot more reticent, both about making money deals with her, but certainly about matching his son.
And he doesn't seem
That's
to
just
like
a theory.
He doesn't seem to be like pro Empire in terms of like him having any care about who's governing what. But it seems like what did he say? He said something to the effect of the new regulations are they're as cumbersome as they are avoidable, or it was something like that. Like they're
that was a great line.
So he doesn't, in one way, it's like it would have been more convenient if the Empire didn't do X, but I'm going to do whatever I want anyway. So I found a way around it. So it's like he's indifferent, to imperial political philosophy. It's just like, where's the next angle? So,
follow the money.
Yeah. Oh, even I loved his gestures too. He's like, I'm always just like, what's around that corner? He's just like, oh, you're so crafty. But yeah. Well, I'll tell you. Well, let's jump over here though to the main event, of course, with the break here. So, what did you guys think of just that exchange between Cassian and Kino there in that little room, that little waiting room before they went back into the cells? What would you think of that exchange?
I thought it was very interesting because it was like they were talking a lot about power and sort of like who was in control at the time, and you definitely saw that switch of back and forth between Kino and Cassian about who's actually really in control between the two of them. And it was sort of Cassian having to like get him back on track, and how like Kino was even trying to tell him to like get on program, focus up,
right,
and let's just comply for now and do our thing. He was like, no, we need to do what we need now, and like now's our chance to actually do something. So you're gonna listen to me. We have a plan. Follow through with it.
Yeah, I love that line. Power doesn't panic. I mean, that just puts so much into perspective. And I love the way they gave Kino this is, I mean, Andy Serkis's performance is amazing as always, but I loved the way the writers gave him time. They gave him basically a good night's sleep to kind of change his entire worldview, right? Because he was completely on program. Yeah. And then this news, this revelation changed his life. You know, no one gets out. Oh, that means I'm not getting out. That means I'm already dead. And there's only, I mean, this kind of brings us to the title of the episode, and that chant that's the refrain, you know, there's only one way out, and for him it's death, right? That's the only way out, and yet it's not the only way out, at least not for so many other prisoners, right?
I real quick, I have to share with the listeners, we had a funny moment before when we were getting set up, and Josh and Robert were in, and I stepped away for a sec to like throw a tea bag out. And it was so funny. Robert's like, Josh, you know, now so he's like, we're never gonna have a better chance. There's one of him and two of us. One way, but that like seizing the moment, one way out the chant. But oh my goodness, yeah, no, I think well, and Father, did you want to add to that at all? Just your thoughts on their exchange there?
I think you guys have said what I would say, so go ahead.
Well, and I love at the end there of that exchange how it's Cassian who's the one who's like on program, like snaps him back out of it, you know, like, so it's like this role reversal right between them. And I think there's just I've been really struck by Andy Serkis's character of just the, you know, he seems like a good leader in a sense, or there's a lot of good leadership capabilities. Like he has this respect, right? You know, this respect among the guys in the cell, and it's, you know, it's prison, and it's, you know, there's so much that we've talked about that's so just miserable and depressing and unjust and all of that. But at the same token, here you have these human relationships, and there's still this place for respect where, you know, yeah, he's in this position, they don't have a choice over it, but like, even if they had a choice, they seem like they would follow him. You know, that he does have this kind of this presence, and that just affected me for whatever reason as well.
I wonder how the Imperials choose their group leaders, because they did a good job.
Yeah. 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 He's a better leader than they are, of course. Oh my goodness. But we finally see the plan start to come to fruition. You see that teamwork. I thought it was interesting that it's the first time you've really seen more consistent, like table to table interaction, you know, instead of like, it's always just your table. And I felt like that was clearly like a on purpose little hint here of like this symbolic kind of thing, or this metaphor for the rebellion too, right? Then, you know, it's not going to work as long as you're just at your table. Like, there has to be this greater collaboration that's going to spread, where people start being willing to take that risk and join each other, you know. So that was a neat thought, I thought, there as well.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme of both Rogue One and Andor as a series, of, you know, the Empire is the common enemy, and squabbling among ourselves is not going to do anything. We need to face the common enemy.
It actually reminds me of that old, you know, the flag of like the broken up serpent, you know, with like the different, like the Revolutionary War, like all the different territories. It's like, you know, join or die, or like unite and all that. That's that same kind of like messaging, you know, it's the same kind of thing. Like, you gotta bring it together, you know. Which you first see, I think you first really see it with Cassian in this show, when he first really decides to be part of his table's work, because he wasn't really part of even that team at first, and now he's like leading all these guys in this effort. So what'd you think though about what the pipe was for? Because that was a passing thing earlier, but like him cutting away at that pipe, that was kind of cool, what that ended up being all about.
I thought it was going to be an electrical line or something, but this plan was much better.
I just like the look on Kino's face when they fry the floor doesn't work, and he's just like looking up like, uh-oh.
Yeah, it worked for a moment, and then the water shorted everything out, because I think at least one of the prisoners did get fried, but then the water did its job. Yeah.
I thought it was funny because if you looked at the water coupling that he was trying to break off, it looked like it was just little like a C coupling where you just would pull it off, and I'm just like, why are you cutting into it at that point? Just like pry it off. It would save so much time. Or even that small little hose in the back, just open that, you know. But no, we got to go through the thickest part there.
He's a rebel, not a plumber.
Yeah. He's like, this isn't my expertise. But they, you know, I felt a little bad for his friend. I don't know that he ever got named, or I'm sure he has a name in the credits. But there was, you know, a friend of his, you know, the African American guy from like the other table closer to the bathroom that he was kind of working with, who just, you'd think that if, like, I don't know, like, I'm not trying to, you know, God rest the guy's soul, you know, in the show, but still, it was like, I feel like he could have made that climb. It's like Jack on the door at the end of Titanic. I'm like, like, I know it has to happen for the plot, but I can't, you know, like, but Cassian gets up there and works it out, and they get up and, you know, start the actual massive break, and they get to the level 8 control room and go in. And what were your guys' thoughts of that scene, or just the observations of and anything jump out at you when they actually got to the control room?
I'm not sure if it was on the way up or not, but like a couple of things that I sort of noticed, at least on their way. The pistols were the same from Rebels, or not Rebels, episode 4. Yeah. Which I thought was really cool. And then whenever I first watched it, I was like, why aren't they grabbing the shoes?
Yeah. I guess they were confident about their burnout, but did that just do that room?
No, because then whenever you went up to like the 8th floor, whatever, they still had power in there.
That's
so
right.
It was just like, I guess, on their floor. But I don't know, it was interesting to see, and I was watching videos after trying to explain it, and they were like, it's an easy way for you to tell noise of being an enemy because you're used to hearing all of their boots clanking around. Things like that. Yeah.
Sneak up on them a little bit.
There probably just weren't enough boots for all the prisoners. So,
but I mean, like, at least the main characters.
Right. I'm trying to look up the name of that. I don't remember what the name of the yeah, there it is. I'm looking it up now. The DH-17 Rebel Blaster, which is interesting that's the one the Rebels have. But it was funny because I was like, you know, being snarky watching it. I'm like, hey, I thought no fan service. Like, just
no, they had a lot. They had a good bit of fan service.
Like, you know, like, just because something shows up in Star Wars that looks like it's from Star Wars doesn't mean it's fan service.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I appreciated that because the aesthetic was pretty awesome. You know, just to remind you that, like, we really are, you know, just a few years before that timeline, and, you know, so that was pretty cool. But go ahead, sorry.
The cold-blooded shooting of the first officer.
Yeah.
That still was another, what are you willing to do to win?
Right.
Yeah, it made me realize, okay, so a lot of these people are prisoners because they committed some kind of heinous crime and are probably killers. And then a lot of other people are probably tourists, like Cassian was pretending to be, who just got swept up by the system. And we don't know who's who.
Right.
You know?
Still don't. You know, because a lot of these guys we're not going to see again.
Yeah.
And then, but toward the end of the scene, I was really expecting him to gun down the other two. And he doesn't. You could tell it was crossing his mind, but he chose not to.
When he's, you know, we've seen him do that before. We know he does it again in the future in Rogue One. You know, so that's a recurring challenge for him. I thought, by the way, it was interesting in the on IMDb in the credits. I don't know if you guys saw this, but they had down like the modulated like voice that they always hear. I thought that was interesting to see the real guy behind the microphone. It's like a Wizard of Oz type moment, but they had it in the credits as voice of God.
Yeah,
which I thought was like, that's okay. You know, I didn't necessarily just, you know, want to go down the theological implications of that in Star Wars, but I thought that was an interesting way to put it. But the neat idea of this, just like, who is that voice? You know, I don't know. And then Kino, of course,
scrawny tall guy,
right? Of course, Kino sounded enough like Snoke that I was like, oh man, I'm not going to bring those theories up again this week. But
I thought it was hilarious that he like tried this kind of like logical, like, shut it down. That could mean so many things.
Right. And then he just shoots the next guy.
Bam. It's like,
Yeah,
I'll do
it's
it.
like, oh, okay.
I got it. Let me
Sort of
help
like
you
the
there.
Princess Bride. Oh, that key.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And then when he talks about shutting the hydraulics down, and then that guy's like, he's got those, and it's back to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's going to take us weeks to start back up again.
Yeah.
I was also intrigued by their costumes because they weren't the standard Imperial costumes. They had the kind of color blocking on the sleeves that the prisoners had, but they also had the Imperial caps and insignia. So I wasn't. Are these prisoners that the Empire is using, or are they Imperial officers? Or I just I don't know.
I mean, it kind of reminded me a little like the cloner uniforms, like the Camino type, or it looked more like that than but that wouldn't. Well, oh no, I'm not going to stay like that. And they keep Kino, and we don't know what happens to him, and he becomes Snoke. I'm like, okay, that's. It's like, no, I think it's just Andy Serkis is in the show.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Oh, internet theories are fun.
Just say no to Snoke.
Everybody knows Snoke is really Jar Jar anyway, so.
That's right. Yeah. We actually did it.
This is what you get when you try to clone Jar Jar.
Well, for fans of the Secrets of Star Wars who are listening, who have not yet gone back and listened to, I don't remember, I think we did it a year or so ago. We did a Darth Jar Jar episode. We did a whole Darth Jar Jar deep dive. It's back there somewhere. So
look for that.
Yeah, me too.
Oh man, it was fun. So we have this inspiring speech, right? Kino's there. He's not. We still don't really know why. Is he nervous? Is he what's his deal? What does Andor say to him? He's like, "Is that the best you can do?"
Yeah.
Right? He's like, "Come on," and motivates him. And then Kino, of course, gives this increasingly rousing and very his heart's in it type speech, where you can really feel his real sort of real expression, of his attitude of the injustice and all of that, and firing everybody up. There's 5,000 of us, and they're all running. And I thought the cinematography of it and the music has grown on me. I didn't really like it the first episode or two. It was just a little too, some of it just seemed like stock, kind of in some cases. It wasn't, but I've noticed it's changed. And I said to my wife, I don't know if there's any truth to this, but I said, like the opening titles, it was very mechanical and sort of modulated and futuristic and kind of Blade Runner-y, but this time it was much more symphonic, and orchestral and I wonder if that's like meant to be like we're the very mechanistic empire, but we're like moving towards this harmonious rebellion and New Republic. I don't know, like maybe I'm reading into it, but that was the impression I got, like a little hinting that there's something more natural, something less twisted, and I don't know, but we get that scene, that breakout scene, and then Kino says it as they're all jumping off. And what was your guys' reaction when we found out why he was so reluctant this whole time for the one way out?
He can't swim. I thought it was interesting though, because he was just smiling there, standing there like, haha, I can't swim. It's all fun. It's all fun.
All the other prisoners are like going around him, and like they're letting him stand there, whereas it's almost been a stampede up to that point.
Right.
And you see people getting knocked down, and Cassian himself gets pushed off the platform, and I was thinking, oh, Cassian's going to go back and help him, or say, I'll carry you. I'll make sure you make it, or something. But he gets swept off himself. And
I
mean, if it was between falling in the hands of the Imperials and jump and hope someone will help me, my choice would be jump and hope someone will help me. So I was a little baffled with that. I think that would be my choice. I'm sitting here on a comfortable couch. What do I know?
Right. I once had an opportunity to jump off a 10-meter platform, and I can swim, and it was still scary as heck. And like, taking a long jump into water, even when you know what you're doing, is not an easy thing.
I did one of those like confidence course things, and I was probably about the same height, and I was hanging from a rope above it, or like a cable, and they yell up to you. They're like, "All right, let go." And I've described it as like my brain instantly told my hands, "Let go," and my hands said, "No." And I was literally like trying to, hey, come on. Like, it was the weirdest. Yeah. But yeah, there's an instinct, there's like dueling instincts in there. I was just surprised. I mean, I'm sure he's not the only guy out of that crew who can't swim, but it's still like, and we don't know that everybody even got up or came up the whole way. But yeah, that's, I mean, in theory, probably the last time we see his character, and I think he's one of the standouts, at least, my take here from this whole season.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Without a doubt.
Great character, great performance. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Oh no, I absolutely love this character as well. I thought he was a phenomenal person, especially at the end. I mean, it still showed that he had a bit more to him, but like all he really knew was that prison, it seemed like. Right. And whenever everything started to change, he was having a lot of personal struggles, especially towards the end there. He was, even with like the speech, he was just like, I'm not sure about this even.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it was a good way to end him without sort of making him survive and then just sort of go off into the distance.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
Well, at the risk of sounding like a broken record to, again, regular fans of the show, it's no surprise, and I know I'm not alone in this, so I'm not, this is like some brave observation, thing that I hold to. I think a lot of people do. One of my just challenges with the sequel trilogy, especially Rise of Skywalker, was just that no matter what was sort of promised or hinted at, when it's all said and done, it's just like the stakes are just not actually really that high. Like, you don't, and like I've said many times, like it's not that I wanted Chewie and Lando to die in a blaze of glory in the Falcon. It's like, if that happens, it drives the story deeper and connects with you and makes it a sacrifice. And it's just, there's just nothing really there. And even, 3PO's memory wipe, and then, oh, hey, R2 had a backup after all. Like, it's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but in this, it's like, here's this guy, he's in a couple of episodes. We know nothing about him and he's gone. And I feel more emotionally sort of, connected to and sad and satisfied as from a story receiving standpoint, narrative standpoint. I guess what I'm saying is it's right. Like that's his destiny and that makes sense. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm on board with that. Yeah. And I just think that's just good writing, that's my take at least. So I think that is something that this show is delivering here and there, certainly with him.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's one of my frustrations with the show that, we have such great characters in all of these sort of mini arcs, and then the central character of the show seems so flat and unchanging, and like I have such a hard time connecting. And it's not Diego Luna's fault. He is a fantastic actor and he's doing an amazing job portraying the character, but I think the writers are just not building Cassian Andor himself up as an interesting character to tell a story around. But I love all of the other supporting characters in the show. I mean,
it's almost like you feel like weird. If Kino escaped somehow and Cassian was left behind, you'd be like, okay, we've got the Kino show. Like, I'm really
like, I would really be so interested in that.
Yeah, it's going to show up in season 3 of The Mandalorian. Don't worry.
There you go. Yeah. He'll be there somewhere.
They'd have to age him up a little bit.
Yeah, just a tad. Unless he's Snoke. No, I'm sorry. That's the last time I said. I'm done. That's the last time. Well,
we're gonna cut you off, Mike.
That's right. Yeah, I've exceeded my quota quite a bit. Angela's listening somewhere right now, just face palming. It's like, Mike, enough with it. So
I did think on the escape scene, also the end of it, the guys fanning out of the water is another one. I know we've talked on several episodes about just how visually well done the show is.
Yeah.
And that image of everybody fanning out. What it reminded me of was one of the few good moments in The Last Jedi with all the attack vehicles going across the desert, leaving the blood red trails behind.
Yeah.
The same kind of idea, just this standing surge of something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, so when you see a good, like a frame that you can just like, you know, I could imagine that like as a print on my wall. Like it's a beautiful, very intriguing shot, you know. Well, do you guys, is there anything else on the prison break you wanted to make sure we covered it all, or want to jump over to this other arc? Was pretty cool.
I had was
Please,
maybe like it was up for like maybe a few seconds, but it was just all of the guards then hiding behind a door with like all of the screwdrivers and all of those like more like primitive things.
Sticks.
Yeah, they didn't have their guns. It was all just like sticks and things that they could beat them with.
Yeah,
I just thought it was interesting to see that, because then it's just like they really were cowards all along.
Yeah,
and it's like you see them just like, okay, let them all leave. We lost. We're done. And how quickly they were just to surrender about it.
In a pretty hierarchical structure, when the hierarchy's gone, the minions don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think Cassian was right. They really didn't have enough guards. And what are you going to do when you've got literally 5,000 prisoners charging at you? You know, it's I think they were just being smart.
Maybe thinking about their own escape plan, because they're probably not going to be looking at a really good career path after this.
Yeah.
They're already didn't get a plum assignment. This is not going to help anything.
Right. Yeah. Well, we have alongside this earlier, you know, we mentioned this other sort of subplot. We don't get a whole lot here in terms of screen time for Dedra Meero, but we see this next step of their plan, this feint sort of operation that they were setting up in the last episode with Anto Krieger, who we don't know a whole lot about, but this other rebel group that Saw doesn't want to work with, and you know Luthen's trying to, you know, get these different folks to at least cooperate to some degree. But now we see this guy referenced again. This pilot has been captured, and they didn't say how they do it, but I believe he was alive originally when they captured him, but they promptly undo that situation by conveniently killing him, making it look like it was some hydraulic failure, because they want to draw out Krieger's group into some kind of recovery operation where then they can track him down and find out where he's hiding out with his rebel group. So this is, you know, an ongoing ISB operation. They're monitoring the situation. What's his name? Major, is it Partagaz? Yeah. So he comes in, he's like, what's... I have my, thank God for Wikipedia here. And then Supervisor Lonnie, it says Jung. When I see that, I think of Carl Jung. So I'm going to say Jung. I don't know if it's Jung, probably Jung, but Lonnie, you know, the red-haired guy, you know, you've seen him a couple times. He's just an ISB guy, you know, no big deal, right? Well, then we, lo and behold, find out that he is actually Luthen's mole in the ISB. So we have this pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? This sort of intriguing, sort of revealing, and also kind of nerve-wracking, at least for me, exchange at the end where Lonnie's super nervous. He's going down into the bowels of Coruscant to meet with Luthen. It says it's been a year since they last met. He's been kind of working his way up at the ISB, and he wants to tell Luthen about Meero. You know, you got to watch out for her. Luthen, of course, denies any involvement in Aldhani. You know, we get this window of being these flies on the wall into just how much deception Luthen's playing. And then he has this meeting with Lonnie. And Lonnie wants out because he has a family. He's got a young daughter. He feels like he's in over his head. And I have it here. It's on IMDb. Someone actually typed up the thing Luthen says. So I thought I'd share it with you guys and we can unpack this if that's all right. So he's back and forth, and he says about he really respects Lonnie's sacrifice, and Lonnie retorts, you know, says, you know, and what, you know, what do you sacrifice? And Luthen says, and I, you know, Stellan Skarsgård, I should just play the clip, but because it's just so awesome. But he says, what do I sacrifice? He says, calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they've set me on a path from which there is no escape. I yearned to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I looked down, there was no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise I know I'll never see. And the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything. So that's probably the most into Luthen's character we've seen yet. He still retains this mystery, but what was your take on this pretty dramatic conclusion here, and any thoughts on Luthen or speculation?
Well, we talked a little earlier about the interaction between Davo and Mon Mothma, and how it's we didn't use the words then, but it, he was kind of offering her a Faustian bargain, right? And now with Luthen, we're seeing, this is explicitly a Faustian bargain. He has given up his soul. He uses the word, the language of damnation for what he has done. And I think that's really interesting. Just bringing in that whole kind of history of Faustian bargains in literature, and that whole question that it raises, what are you willing to sacrifice for what you want? And he ends it with, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. What did I sacrifice? Everything. So his summary is, everything to him is his ego having that gratitude, which is like really self-centered in a weirdly devilish way.
I didn't quite read it that way. I think everything encompassed everything that he mentioned in the whole thing leading up to it. It might be the capstone's what you said, but I think he was saying, I sacrificed my whole entire self and everything I wanted for this. Ego being a part of it, but not necessarily the whole story.
I wonder about because of course you could get into a whole can of worms here, and I'm sure we'll continue to with this show and with the next season and everything. But and by the way, I don't think I think the plan is, as I saw it, that this is meant to be this long drawn out, more meandering, in some ways, kind of show to really kind of set the stage. And then season 2 is these arcs of like 1 year, like 3 episodes for 1 year, like 4 years before the Death Star, 3 years, BBY, 2 years BBY, like just building up like that. So this, I don't know who will be around in season 2, but the reason I bring that up is just, it seems like there's always this room for contemplating from a Catholic perspective the rock solid teaching we have down through the centuries of the church, right from our Lord himself, that it is never permissible, to do evil in the hopes that good might come from it. And that's right. That big, what I find tricky with Star Wars is I love evaluating it. And that's what this show really is about in so many ways, like evaluating it from our Catholic framework. But it's also tricky because it's like, how does that work within, like, in universe though? Because what is their morality? Like what is the Force? It has its own light side and dark side. It's a tricky thing, I find.
Even in secular terms, the phrase that springs to mind too is something I ran across in a book. The one thing you can't give for your heart's desire is your heart. That's what Luthen did.
Yeah.
What was that phrase again? He's I've given up all chance at inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless space. And it's just like this. Why? Well, and it's like, and I know why, but also what, But then he dresses it though too in this language of like, burning my decency for someone else's future, like to make a sunrise I'll never see. There's this like self-sacrificial. I mean, you can't help but think of Cassian's real, like getting melted by the Death Star explosion. I mean, like there's a sunrise. I mean, we're on our way to what Luthen's talking about, but that's, but yeah, that, I don't know. I think my biggest question with him is what he meant when he was talking to Saw about how he's a coward. Like, does he actually think he should be on the front lines? I mean, like this, whatever he's doing seems to be the thing he's good at. And that's an important role, in any kind of rebellion type or any operation like this. You do need people like him, So I don't know. I'm really curious about who he is. That's my biggest question, I think, about this show.
Because he tells us what he sacrificed, but he still has never really told us what his motive is for being in the rebellion in the first place.
Right. Well, everybody's talking about the 15-year comment because that's so precise. And that's right at the beginning of the whole thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like not 6 months ago or 2 years ago.
A lot about this speech and also about the framing of it and also thinking about how we were first introduced to him on Ferrix, where he was without his wig as he is in this scene. Was wearing a cloak, and at that time he was carrying what some people said was a cane or some people said was a stick, but looked like a lightsaber with a physical blade rather than kind of like the toy lightsabers that we now have available today, except his blade would retract really nicely. And at that point, I wondered, is he connected to the Jedi? And other people have raised that idea that he is, an escapee from Order 66. And this scene very much gives me the feeling, because he doesn't really talk about any actual concrete things that he has given up. He talks about the abstraction, kinship, maybe. Love, kindness, but I share my dreams with ghosts. So that and the kind of cloak that he has, I kind of feel like he's a former Jedi who has let himself slip into the dark side in order to fight his enemy. I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them.
What do you guys think about that? Because I tend to, I don't know. I think there has to be at least some kind of Jedi connection somewhere, just because of a lot of reasons. And the Kyber crystal thing, and there's holocrons he's got on the shelf. I don't know. There's something's there.
With him having so much with history and observing so many different cultures, I feel like he would definitely look towards the Jedi and the Force as probably the most reasonable, I'm guessing, for their time. I'm not sure if but everybody seems to know the Force, and I wouldn't be surprised if he either was a Jedi or was like a Maz, where they just heavily trusted in the Force kind of thing.
Yeah. Or what if he's like a guardian of the will too, or something like that? I hadn't thought of that.
Whatever that is.
Right. Yeah. He's one of those Donnie Yen's crew. I don't know.
Yeah,
because there's a Rogue One, connection in a way too. I wonder. I hadn't thought of that till now.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Too, if you think back to that scene, his first showdown with Cassian when he's recruiting him, and then he tells Saw he's a coward. He's not a coward. There's a very real possibility Andor just goes ahead and shoots him there.
Right.
Unless he's got Force abilities, he can tell what Andor's thinking.
Oh yeah. Oh. They just give it away where he's just in the first scene, he's just going like this to everyone he talks to. It's no, he can't have him doing that. But
this is the end you're looking for.
Right? Yes.
I wonder a little bit if he's not kind of like Luke in The Last Jedi, having cut himself off from the Force.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we at least know that's possible,
Yeah.
In canon. So
yeah.
Now
bad canon, good canon still.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. I just for some reason thinking the other day when Vader's dying, Luke's like, he's like, you take my helmet off. He says, nothing can stop that now. And I'm like, unless you put your hand over top of me and just will really, really hard for me to be healed.
Yeah.
Like, yep. Oh my. No, but yeah, no, so do you guys anything else you guys want to share here? Because he says at the end, the last thing I wanted to say was just that he's saying I need as many heroes as I can get, and that's of course the visual cue to cut back to Cassian and Melchi running, and you're like, well, he doesn't have any idea where Cassian is. Like clearly they have to link back up at some point, and whether that's Cassian reaching out to him because he's like, listen, no hard feelings. I thought I could handle myself out here in the universe. I can't. I need to be part of something bigger. Who knows how that's going to go? So any thoughts you guys have about the episode as a whole, or anything in particular, any themes?
Back on that, though, remember, the rebellion, such as it is, has Cassian's mom under surveillance, so they might be ready to draw him back in that way too.
Right. I think that has to come into play anyway. Yeah, so that we'll at least get a little more of Marva.
Yep. Thank you. I can't pick up her name.
Yeah, I'm definitely expecting Marva to show up in the last couple episodes, but also I think Krieger's going to be a part of it. I think we're going to see the sacrifice that Krieger and his 50 men make.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you guys remember that scene? There was a clip in the trailer of that weird like laser thing shooting out of the ship, and Luthen appeared to be in the ship. Some space battle or something and we haven't seen that yet. Whatever. That's the only thing I remember from the trailers I haven't seen yet.
I think Silas is going to go over the edge here at some point too. But does he get so mad that we just won't listen to that he becomes a rebel, or where does that go? I don't think we've seen the last of him by a long shot.
Yeah, you're talking about Cyril?
Cyril. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is. I think he was absent from the last episode, and he was absent from this episode. We didn't see him at all, and
I think he's just sitting here in his office doing.
Was he in the last one? Yeah, was it the last one where he was like, hanging out outside, And,
Oh, that could be, yeah.
But like creeping on.
But he wasn't in this episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I very much want to see where his story is going, because series wide, I think he might be my favorite character.
I know what you mean. I tend to agree. I think there's a lot of potential there.
I can root for.
I wouldn't say I'm rooting for him, but man, he's interesting.
The last one you can kind of see. I mean, Dad has just gone full out evil at this point.
Right.
So the one guy left is doing what he thinks his duty is.
Yeah.
I feel like Dedra's also starting to be left behind. Like in that little short scene that we saw of her, Lonnie actually gave the suggestion of whatever it was, and then she just kind of storms out of the room in like a fuss and is just like, he's not going to listen to me anymore. So it's like, whenever the other man from the ISB that she used to have the quarrels with, he was like, you got to always watch your back. And now, here Lonnie is taking his spot.
Well, she has no idea why, but he's actually an agent. I really didn't see him coming. I gotta say, there was that was a good twist, I think. So we'll see what happens. But all right, well, guys, anything else you want to unpack? Are we good? Until next time.
Okay. Until next week.
Until next time. Yeah.
All right. Well. In that case, that's right. In that case, that's it from us for this week. So, listeners, what did you think of this episode of Andor? Please let us know. We'd love to hear your take. So, anytime you want to give us that, you can email us any feedback you want over at starwars@sqpn.com, or you can visit the StarQuest Discord community. It's sqpn.com/discord. You can also find StarQuest, I should say, on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, and on Twitter at SQPN. Previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars can be found by visiting sqpn.com/Star Wars, which is where you can find the Darth Jar Jar episode, for example. We'd also like to take a moment to Oh my gosh, I think I might go listen to it again. I don't remember. We got pretty deep. So we'd also like to just take a moment before we close out here to, as always, thank our Secrets of Star Wars patrons this week, including Donna C., Maria X., Tim L., Daniel E., and Kevin N. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Last but not least, be sure to follow the Secrets of Star Wars in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast app, or on the SQPN YouTube channel, where you should hit the bell to get notifications. We'd really appreciate it also if you could give us, take a minute, give us a nice review over there on Apple Podcasts, and share it far and wide. Help us grow our community so we can reach more listeners. And don't forget to order your very own Secrets of Star Wars merch, t-shirt, phone case, all kinds of stuff, notebook, whatever you want. Visit sqpn.com/merch for that stuff. And so next time we'll be back to unpack Andor Season 1, Episode 11, which I don't know the title of just yet. We'll have to wait and see, but mark your calendars because you'll definitely not want to miss that. So until then, Robert King, thank you so much for joining me for the Secrets of Star Wars.
It's great to be here.
And Father Geoff, thanks so much for joining us as well.
Better than ever.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Josh Beeghley, thanks so much.
Always happy to join.
And once again, I'm Mike Creavey. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy, The Secrets of Middle-earth. Find it wherever you can find podcasts or at sqpn.com/Middle-earth.